Welcome to the cutting edge of GTM Talk. You're tuning into the first ever AI-powered go-to-market podcast, brought to you by Exordium. Our AI podcasters provide an educated and impartial view on the discussion topics that are widely relevant in today's business landscape. As you know, this series dives into all the different disruptive end-to-end go-to-market strategies, from marketing and sales to customer success. The main objective is to share practical strategies and execution plans to help you drive the most effective go-to-market outcomes. Let's jump into this week's episode. Are you a tech startup CFO feeling the squeeze in today's tight funding landscape? As 2025 approaches, a sharp focus on capital efficiency and a solid plan for profitability is more critical than ever. In this episode, we're unpacking proven strategies to help you maximize resources, streamline talent acquisition, and make every dollar work harder, laying the groundwork for sustainable growth and long-term success. Tune in for insights on how to navigate today's financial pressures with a practical, actionable plan. Follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube for all the latest in GTM insights. Now, let's jump into it.
Welcome back, everybody. For this deep dive, we're going to be talking about something that I think is probably on the mind of every CFO in tech right now.
Yeah.
And that is offshoring.
Definitely top of mind.
You know, we're looking at kind of a crazy landscape right now. Volatile revenue VCs are really like tightening their belts. And then on top of that, talent costs are just through the roof.
Yeah, it's a tough market out there for sure.
Yeah. And so, it's not even just about straight up cutting costs anymore.
Right.
You really have to find new ways to make that dollar stretch further than ever before.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, I think, why offshoring is becoming such a hot topic right now. It's moving from kind of just like a tactical thing, just to save a few bucks, to like a core part of your financial strategy.
Okay.
It's not just about like doing things cheaper. It's about getting access to a global talent pool and really being able to like build the teams that you need to grow.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm remembering back to our last deep dive with Akia from Netlify.
Yeah.
And she was talking about some pretty amazing cost savings.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That she had seen from offshoring certain roles. But, for a CFO, it can't just be about slashing salaries.
Oh, absolutely not. No, it's got to be bigger than that.
Right.
You have to look at the big picture. Like what kind of talent do you actually need to hit your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Where can you find that talent at a price that makes sense for your business?
Yeah.
And then how do you actually manage that whole process when you have teams all over the world,
Right.
Different time zones, different cultures. It's a lot to think about.
So it sounds like what you're saying is it's like a strategic decision, not just we got to cut costs quick. Let's just offshore some stuff.
Exactly. It's not a Band-Aid. It's like a fundamental shift in how you think about building and managing your team.
Mm-hmm. So I guess for CFOs specifically, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about when it comes to offshoring?
Yeah. So one of the first things is just understanding the different models for offshoring, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Okay.
So you could set up what's called a captive center, which is basically your own little mini company in another country.
Okay.
Or you could go with outsourcing, where you partner with another company that handles all the hiring and the payroll and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And each one has its own pluses and minuses. So you got to figure out what's the right fit for your company.
Okay. So let's say you've figured out the model that you want to use. What's next?
Okay, well then you got to think about which roles actually make sense to offshore, right?
Okay.
Because some jobs are just way easier to do remotely than others.
Mm-hmm.
Like software development, that's a classic example. You can have developers all over the world and it works great.
Right.
But other roles like sales or customer support, those might need more of a physical presence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you got to kind of map out your org chart and figure out where the opportunities are.
Okay. And I imagine on top of that, you got to be thinking about the specific skills and experience you need, right?
Oh, for sure. It's not just about finding the cheapest labor. You got to find the right people.
Right.
People who are talented and can actually do the job well.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do your homework, vet the candidates, check their references, just like you would with any other hire.
Yeah, and that brings up another interesting point, I think, which is the whole cultural difference thing.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
How do you make sure that everyone's communicating well and working together smoothly when you have teams all over the world?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But there are things you can do.
Okay.
Like, invest in some cross-cultural training for your team. Make sure everyone's clear on like the communication protocols, like who to contact for what and when.
Right.
And then just encourage people to like build relationships with their teammates in other countries. Get to know each other a little bit. It makes a big difference.
So I guess kind of the theme here is that like communication is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's like the foundation of any successful team, but it's even more important when you're talking about offshoring.
Right. So let's talk about like measuring the success of this.
Okay.
Because it can't just be about like, oh, we saved X number of dollars.
No. It's got to be more holistic than that.
Okay.
You got to look at things like productivity. Are people getting their work done? What's the quality of the work? How quickly are you getting products to market?
Okay.
And then, of course, you got to think about customer satisfaction, too.
Yeah.
Are your customers happy with the products and services that your offshore team is helping to deliver?
So it sounds like if you do it right, offshoring can actually like improve all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about cutting costs. It's about doing things better.
Okay.
And that's where I think the real value of offshoring comes in.
Right.
It can be a real game changer for your business.
So we've talked about like the different models, choosing the right roles, managing risks, building relationships, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, lots to consider.
But I imagine there's also some potential pitfalls too, right? Like things that CFOs need to watch out for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like any big decision offshoring comes with its own set of risks.
Okay.
So you got to be smart about it and go in with your eyes wide open. So like one of the biggest risks is quality control,
Okay.
When you're working with teams that are all over the place, it can be harder to make sure that everyone is meeting your standards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? How do you mitigate that risk?
Yeah, so there are a few things you can do.
Okay.
First off, you got to have a really solid quality assurance process in place. So that could be like regular code reviews, testing audits, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The second thing is invest in good communication and collaboration tools. Things that make it easier for people to work together, even if they're not in the same room.
So I imagine like clear documentation is super important too.
Oh, absolutely. You got to have well-defined processes and good documentation so everyone's on the same page. And you can avoid like miscommunications and errors. And then the third thing, and this is a big one, don't underestimate the importance of building relationships with your offshore teams. If you have that trust and that rapport, it's way easier to address issues quickly and effectively.
Yeah, because you can like actually talk to each other.
Exactly.
Not just like sending emails back and forth.
Right. It's about building those human connections.
Okay, so quality control, that's a big one. What else?
Another one that CFOs need to be thinking about is data security.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
When you're sharing sensitive information with teams in other countries, you got to be extra careful.
So what are some like best practices there when you're talking about offshoring and data security?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you got to have strong data security policies in place. And you got to make sure that your offshore partners are actually following those policies and that they're compliant with all the relevant regulations. It's also a good idea to use secure communication channels and encrypt any sensitive data that's being transmitted.
Okay.
And then, of course, do your due diligence background checks on all your potential partners and employees.
Yeah, background checks always important.
Absolutely. Can't skip that step.
All right, so those are some good tips for mitigating risk.
Yep. Risk management is key.
But let's talk about like the good stuff for a second.
Okay.
Like, aside from cost savings, what are some of the other benefits of offshoring?
Yeah, so one of the biggest benefits is access to a global talent pool.
Okay.
In today's market, it's really hard to find and keep good people locally.
Yeah, it's competitive out there.
It's super competitive. So offshoring basically opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
You can tap into skilled professionals from all over the globe.
And that's got to be especially helpful in like specialized fields where it's really hard to find people.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you need a specific skill set and you just can't find it locally, offshoring can be a lifesaver.
Okay, so access to talent, that's a big one. What else?
Another big advantage is agility and scalability.
Okay.
By working with offshore teams, you can scale your operations up or down way faster than you could if you were just relying on local resources.
So it's kind of like you're more nimble.
Exactly. You can respond to changes in the market way faster.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, the last thing I'll mention is innovation.
Okay.
So when you're working with teams in different parts of the world, you're naturally going to get exposed to new perspectives and new ideas.
Yeah, you're not just stuck in your own little bubble.
Exactly. And that can lead to some really cool breakthroughs and innovations.
So it's almost like offshoring can actually make you more competitive.
That's the idea. It's
Yeah.
about thinking of offshoring as an investment, not just a cost-cutting measure.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here, different models, risks, benefits, all that stuff.
Yeah, we've been through the whole gamut.
But I want to bring it back to our CFOs listening in.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways for them? What should they actually be doing to make this work?
Yeah, so the first takeaway is offshoring. It's a strategic decision, not a tactical one.
Okay.
It's got to be aligned with your overall business goals. And you got to really understand your needs and your resources before you jump in.
So it's not just like, oh, everyone's doing it, we should too.
Exactly. You got to have a good reason for doing it.
Okay. So due diligence is key.
Absolutely. Do your research, assess potential partners, and then come up with a solid plan for managing your offshore teams.
So you got to have a plan.
You got to have a plan. And remember, communication is super important.
Yeah, we talked about that.
You got to establish those clear communication protocols. Invest in cross-cultural training and make an effort to build those relationships.
Well, it's more about like a partnership than just like a vendor relationship.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, cool. And any other advice for our CFOs?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are a lot of resources out there that can help you navigate this whole process.
Okay.
Consultants, industry groups. There's a lot of support available.
Okay, great.
All right.
So to wrap this up, it sounds like offshoring can be a really powerful tool.
It can be.
It can help companies save money, get access to global talent, be more agile, and even be more innovative.
Oh, true.
But it's not a magic bullet.
No.
You got to plan it out, you got to execute it well,
Right.
and you got to build those strong relationships with your teams.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It really is. And for CFOs, trying to figure out how to navigate all the craziness that's coming in 2025.
Yeah.
Offshoring is definitely something to take a serious look at.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And for our listeners out there, if you're a CFO or really anyone in a leadership position in a tech company, I think it's worth taking some time to really dig into this topic, See if it makes sense for your company.
Yeah, for sure. Do your homework.
Yeah, see how it might fit into your financial strategy for the coming year and beyond.
Exactly. There's a lot of potential there.
All right. Well, thanks for breaking all that down for us.
Happy to do it.
And to everyone listening out there, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Before you go, be sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon to stay updated on all our upcoming episodes. We'll be sharing real-world customer outcomes that highlight the benefits of offshore GTM, diving into the era of reduced venture capital, discussing the new realities tech companies face, talk about founder mode in GTM, and more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.